Good morning, everyone. I'm Vanessa.
I'm Caroline. Welcome. I think we're going to give it a few minutes to let more people come in that might be getting here a little late, like I was this morning. So, Vanessa, what's your favorite houseplant?
Oh, I don't know, actually. That's a tough one. Probably my big philodendron. I love that guy. He grows, takes up my whole window.
Nice.
And he never complains.
Yeah, never
Don't
complains.
tell the others.
Don't hear a peep out of him. No.
What's your favorite houseplant, Caroline?
That's tricky. Probably have to be one of my cactus, one of my cacti. I didn't name them, so I can't give you a name for that. But my candelabra cactus.
Ooh, yeah.
He's big, taller than me.
All right.
All right, looks like everyone's here. So welcome to Botanical Boot Camp with Caroline and Vanessa.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So today we're talking about overwintering tropicals and houseplants.
Yes.
Anything to add to the intro, Vanessa?
No.
All right, I'm going to take it away. So we're going to start today by talking about cactus. Now's a good time to start bringing in houseplants that were outside, cactus that were outside. We're starting to dip into the 40s at night. So when you bring in your cactus, you want to think about acclimating it to your climate inside your house. So now's a good time to bring it in when you can have your windows open. You can still be getting some breeze from the outside, some of that air coming in. Keep those cactus happy. Now you want to put it in a good spot that gets sunlight next to a nice, open, big, giant window. You don't want it to be in a corner or near any doorways where it's going to get drafty or get hit by that winter wind when you're coming in and out of the house. As far as watering goes with your cactus, once you bring it inside, you might only have to water it I'd say 2 times.
Yeah.
Some of mine I don't even water at all. And you can look to the plant. They'll usually give you signs that they're getting a little thirsty. They might start to kind of shrivel up just a little bit. They'll do that. That'll be a good sign to water them. Again, you probably won't need to water them more than twice through the winter. And when you bring them in, now is the time, but think about next year, you want to make sure you bring them in before a big rain. So if they're sitting outside not covered, you want to let them dry out before bringing them in because you can chance of getting a little bit of root rot if you bring them in all soaking wet because it's going to be a little bit harder for them to dry out without that sunlight. All right. Anything else to add to cactus?
Honestly, what you touched on with the watering, that's going to be true for a lot of tropicals when they're inside over winter. The days are shorter, and even though it's toasty inside your house, your plants know that it's winter time. So they're not going to be growing as fast, and a lot of them are going to need a little less water. And a little extra TLC.
Maybe a bedtime story or two.
Yeah.
So they will go a little bit dormant, like Vanessa said. They're not going to grow too much. If you do have them near a window that gets sunlight, they might bloom. My Peruvian cactus did bloom last year in February inside. So if you have the right conditions, again, not near a door that gets super drafty and enough sunlight, you might get a flower or two in the winter months.
And, if you've got cacti and other highlight tropicals, but you don't have enough window space or bright enough windows, you can easily supplement with a grow light. There's a lot of inexpensive LED options available these days that you can use to supplement your natural light. And they're really inexpensive to run as well.
And they'll help you save all your babies because nobody wants to lose one during the dark months of winter time. So we'll go ahead and move on to tropicals and overwintering those. We'll start with ones that are outdoors, planted in ground. You've got elephant ears, canna lilies, brugmansia, dahlias. A lot of those things you can mulch over and leave outside. So once that first frost hits, everything starts to turn brown. You can go ahead and cut it down. Mulch it, put leaves over it. It's not your best bet for saving things. You might lose some, especially if we hit a hard winter. It's not going to be guaranteed that they're going to come back in the spring. But if you don't feel like digging things up, rinsing things, putting them into storage, that is a good option. Again, just 1 inch of mulch, some leaves on top just to insulate a little bit. Now, if you don't want to chance it, leaving them outside, you do have the option of taking those into storage. So you're going to go outside, dig those bulbs and tubers up. So we have some of Vanessa's plants here. Truck just went by. That was fun. Turned a little bit yellow for a second. So we've got some caladiums. So we'll start by, you're digging yours up. These might be in pots. They might be in the ground. Either way, they're going to be in some dirt. So you're going to lift it up. We see all this lovely dirt all around that Vanessa dug up this morning on her way in. So you're going to want to take all that dirt and rinse it off. So let's bring our next plant over.
Yeah, so here you can see like the little bulbs and tubers, like once the dirt is rinsed off. For caladiums, it's a good idea to set them aside, let them dry out a little bit. The leaves are going to start shriveling up, and you'll just take those off, and you can store them usually in a garage where it's cool and dry, in some paper, or some people do like perlite, just to keep them insulated and not too wet.
Yes, exactly what Vanessa just said. So with elephant ears, those are usually planted in ground. Canna lilies, if you want to dig those up, you're going to want to let that first frost hit them. The leaves will start to brown. After that is when you want to go ahead and take them up. And then let them sit on maybe a porch, somewhere dry and cool that's not going to get hit by rain, or sunlight for about a week, because you want to make sure they're dry after rinsing them off. Because if we put them into storage wet, what's going to happen? They're going to rot. And no one wants that. So after you let them dry for a good week or two, you can go ahead and cut the leaves that are now dead off like an inch from the top. Take a shoebox. You can use perlite, sawdust, or newspaper to wrap each bulb or tuber individually, and then put them in a dark space to store them. You want it to be dry again because you don't want to rot those bulbs and tubers. You can check on them every so often. You know, if you see one that's rotten, take it out. If they look super dry, you can give them a couple spritz, but just make sure you leave that lid off your box if you do have a top on. Anything else for storage?
Well, for digging them out, especially elephant ears where the tubers are really big, start pretty far away from that plant because you want to be careful not to damage any of those bulbs when you're digging them out. That can cause them to rot. Like we said, no one wants that. So just, give yourself like a nice little margin around your plant so that you don't damage those bulbs.
Yeah. So moving on to dormant. So if you've got elephant ears, some types of, different tropicals, you want to bring them inside. Maybe they're in pots, but you don't want to deal with keeping them green and happy through the winter. You always have the option of just letting them go dormant, which I do with a few of mine. So I'll take my pot inside. I'll even let it get hit by frost right before I bring it in and cut all the greenery back to kind of the pot level. And all I do with mine is just put it in a closet. I've got a closet under my stairwell that stays about like 50 degrees. It doesn't have to be super warm. You just want it to stay above freezing. And you can place those plants in a nice, dark, cool space. And again, they're just going to go dormant. They're not going to die. In the spring, you can bring them back out, hit them with water, and they'll start growing again. That one's pretty easy. Not always a guarantee. You might lose some. With the storage, taking the bulbs out, that will give you a few more. They're going to make babies, which won't really happen so much with the dormant option.
Now, if you've got plants that cannot be dug out or go dormant, like a lot of our leafy houseplants, those guys do great outdoors for the summer. I bring a lot of mine outside because they love all that warmth and humidity. Most of those guys are not going to be able to go dormant. So for those, you can just bring the whole container inside. I usually start doing that once nighttime temperatures get between about 50 and 60. Some of them can get a little bit cooler than that, but because they're going to be, you want them actively growing inside, I usually go towards the higher end, closer to 60, just so, it's not as much of a temperature difference for them to adjust to. Instead of just, hauling your pots inside, it's going to be a good idea to do a little bit of cleaning, especially for the leafier plants. There are probably some little 6-legged or 8-legged friends that have made their homes in your plants over the summer, and we don't want those inside. So cleaning them is really simple. I get out a hose and just spray down all my plants with a little bit of pressure. That knocks off like dirt, dust, old leaves. it's a good time to like cut back some of the ones that might have gotten a little bit bigger, prune back like any of the old dead growth, like on this little pitcher plant here. Just clean them up. And then once, you've got them rinsed, I set them aside to dry, and you can, if you want, apply some neem oil or insecticidal soap just to take care of any bugs that might still be hiding out. Once you've done that, you're ready to start bringing them in. I'll usually put them in their own little area, all the ones that have been outside, just because I've got other houseplants inside also, just in case there's any little pests or bugs still in there. And also these plants are going to be, adjusting to a new environment. So it's good to keep like a close eye on them, just make sure everyone's doing okay, not getting too stressed.
Yeah, I took in one of my, just a little side story. I brought in my fiddle leaf last night and looked at one of the leaves, and it was covered in spider mites.
Ooh,
so luckily I checked that before I introduced it to all of my houseplants that had been indoors all summer.
Spider mites they're a pretty common pest, especially in the wintertime as it starts getting cooler and drier. They really love those low humidity conditions. So, yeah, that's a big one to look out for.
Evil things.
Yeah. Very contagious, but easy to get rid of if you catch them early, like Caroline did. And then, as you touched on before, once you get them inside, you probably will want to adjust your watering and feeding routine a little bit. Most houseplants, again, are not actively growing, so you don't want to do, your regular fertilizer anymore. Cut back on that or cut it out completely even.
Yeah, I don't fertilize mine in the winter.
Yeah. And then, sorry.
Vanessa got tickled.
I did. I got tickled. And, cut back on your watering a little bit just so there's, no chance of damaging your roots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want them sitting in all that water because, again, they're not going to breathe as much inside as they did outside. So I cut way back on watering everything. I know I talked on cacti earlier, but really with all my plants, the wintertime, I kind of let them know when they tell me when they want water.
And then I guess, for a lot of the humidity-loving tropicals like calatheas, pitcher plants, it is going to be helpful to maybe think about adding a little bit of humidity for those guys. The little pebble trays like this work really well if you have just, one or a couple little plants. You put water in the tray with the pebbles, and it evaporates and kind of increases humidity around that plant. Our central heating dries out the air pretty significantly. So, some of the, some guys, like cacti, the bigger, more robust, philodendrons, don't really have too much trouble adjusting, but some of the more delicate plants might need a little extra help.
My cacti do great inside in the winter, again, because it's dry. But I do put a lot of my houseplants, like my calatheas, in a different room with a humidifier.
Yeah. And clumping them together helps too. You get, transpiration from all the other plants all together, so you can kind of localize it a little bit. Exactly. And they have some buddies to hang out with.
That's right. Friends are great in the wintertime. All right.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else to touch on, Vanessa?
I don't think so. I think we've got it covered.
Yeah, I guess
some Q&A.
We're ready for you.
Yeah.
All right. We have a question about lemon and lime trees. What do you suggest for bringing them inside?
I've already brought mine in. I've got a south-facing window. It's actually a sliding door that I put it right in front of not the door area, but the window. That one, again, kind of similar to my cacti. I don't water during the winter. I might water that one 4 times and give it a little bit more water, maybe twice, let it run through, but make sure it's not sitting in the tray. I'll empty the tray out of water before I am done, finished with it.
And if you don't have big south-facing windows, citrus actually does flower and start setting fruit in late winter. So, if you don't have enough window light, you can supplement with grow light, give it a little extra boost.
Yeah.
And then the same person is asking if they can keep the lemon and lime trees in the garage instead.
If your garage has heat, yes, and windows, you do want the temperature to stay above 50 at least, and for it to be getting some light.
Definitely above freezing for citrus.
Got another one.
Yay! Keep them coming.
Will a palm last through the winter inside?
Yeah, a palm will last inside,
Inside.
And now's the time to bring it in. And again, that one doesn't need quite as much light as, I guess depending on the variety, as the lemon or lime tree. I have my palm just in my living room. It doesn't get direct sunlight, but it's bright light that comes in.
Great. And what about ferns? Should you cut ferns back?
I prefer to cut ferns back just because those guys are one of the, more humidity-loving plants, and when those leaves get dry and crunchy, it makes a pretty big mess. It's not great. So I do cut my ferns back a little bit just to, keep the space to a minimum because they do get pretty big over summer.
They get wild. I've cut mine back already. Yeah. One of my 25.
And they can come back like after a pretty heavy haircut too, like the macho ferns, Kimberly Queens. They're really good at growing right back.
And then someone's asking, they have mandevilla in the ground. Can they put compost and mulch to protect it, or should they dig it up?
They should dig that one up. That one's a little more higher on the tropics, so I wouldn't chance that one. I would go ahead and dig it up and take it in.
And what about succulents?
Succulents, those guys, definitely before you get a frost, they can handle a little bit cooler temperatures, but it's still, because you're going to be readjusting them, it's easier to do it a little bit earlier. With a lot of the leafier succulents, like the escheverias, I don't really rinse those too thoroughly just because they don't like water sitting on the leaves. I do a little bit of insecticidal soap just to give them a quick clean. But I just bring them in and put them under some lamps for the winter so they don't get stretched out.
And one thing to note on bringing plants in, I always want to keep moving them through the winter because it makes me happy to rearrange. But once you bring those plants in and they acclimate to that spot, even though it's in the same climate, try not to move them around your house. It's hard, especially when you have a lot and you like to rearrange, but find that spot for them and let it stay there through the winter months.
Right, and we have a question about soil. So all of my plants have been repotted over the summer, so the soil is less than 6 months old. Should I repot everything and then bring them inside, or do a plant bath? I've read about dunking the whole plant, pot included, in a Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap bath. Is this right?
I would say it kind of depends on the plants. I probably wouldn't repot them unless they need it right before winter because they're not going to be growing. Most stuff you want to do, repot them in spring or summer while they're actively growing. As for the soap, some plants could probably handle that, but some of the more delicate ones like calatheas or ferns, I would be really careful about doing that. And in either case, definitely water it through really thoroughly to flush out any
I would
soap.
do the flush to flush it out before I bring it in with some of them. But, like you were saying, they're already starting to go dormant because they already know the seasons are changing. So there's no reason to shock them into something else before you do bring them inside.
Great. My lavender is in a pot on the deck and starting to bloom again. I'm so happy about that.
Yay.
How long can I leave it out?
Lavender different varieties can winter here. They don't winter well. You could just leave it out all winter and just kind of let it die off. It might come back. In ground, it does a lot better.
I think Phenomenal is a more cold hardy variety. But some of the French and Spanish lavender likes it a little bit warmer. So you could probably cut that back and let it go dormant.
Yeah, you could also bring it in. It'll do a little bit better if you want to keep it green. But that is one that is semi-perennial here in Middle Tennessee.
Cool. And do you water palms through the winter?
Yes. Most palms, except maybe sago palms and more of the cycad type ones, do like to be more evenly moist. They don't really go through as much of a dormant phase. So, during summer, for example, I water most of my houseplants about once a week, maybe twice for some of the ones that like a lot of water. In the winter, it's more like every 10 days or so. So it's just a little bit longer for more of the tropical plants like a palm would be.
Mm-hmm. And how frequently should you water succulents?
Ooh, that one they're all a little different.
They are. Cacti, I mean, it's, that maybe a couple times, but succulents, like, I have mine in, like, a very, very airy mix with, like, very little, like, soil, so it dries out super fast. I water them maybe, like, once a week in the winter for succulents and, like, a regular, succulent mix soil.
And I test my soil, just kind of let it dry out between.
Yeah, if it's got a drain hole on the bottom, like I always check the bottom to make sure it's completely dried through before you water. But yeah, for succulent mix, like maybe every like 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how dry it's getting. But yeah, you just want to make sure it's completely dry before you water again.
The biggest thing in winter is not overwatering.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you use neem oil to clean?
So neem oil is an all-natural, like, insecticide and fungicide. This is my little ready-to-use sprayer. I just spritz the leaves, like, top and bottom. I'll even do, like, the surface of the soil a little bit, just to, get any bugs. But it smothers out the pests and kind of conditions the leaves a little bit, too. Makes them look nice and glossy.
It does.
But yeah, it's really really mild to your plants, but takes care of like a big variety of pests.
That looks like all the questions we have.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us this morning. October 7th is Choosing Conifers with Joy. Yeah. So make sure you sign up for that. And we have a lot of other webinars coming up in the future. So thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.